Yeah, listener, actually, I do know Marcel Fortuna. So, Jesse Taylor, who gained some fame in the UFC, even though I think he only fought in the UFC once, used to come train with us at El Nino. And I met Jesse Taylor the same day I met Sean Salmon, right? Like, and they're both, good looking, strapping, guys in their 20s. And I didn't know who they were from Adam, truthfully. But then one of my teammates, Joe Toole, goes, "Dude, you know you were just dropping bombs with Jesse Taylor?" And I didn't really know it at all because I didn't really care. I was inside my criminal world or whatever. But Jesse would come up from San Diego, where he's from. He was a Poway wrestler, and anybody who knows wrestling knows Poway is like a world-class high school wrestling team. Won state like a million years in a row. Jesse was part of that crew, and his wrestling was absolutely sick. And he trained at El Nino when he went up north to fight at Dragon House. Now, Dragon House was the local MMA promotion. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I went to the first Dragon House, and it was in this Kezar Pavilion, the same arena that was the old training camp for the 49ers a million years ago in old San Francisco. And it was all amateur fights. And, I could have jumped on the bandwagon. I had a lot more stand-up skill than most of them, but I didn't. I was involved in my criminal life, and I stayed out of it. But Dragon House became not only a kung fu school, which it was, now it's a jiu-jitsu MMA school, but it became the premier promotion in MMA in San Francisco. It's probably why Gilbert brought his business down to the tech with Scott Coker, also because he's looking for a daddy who actually knows what he's doing. And Coker certainly does that, right? Like, he's the guy who brought it over the top. And I've talked about Coker in other videos. Was a karate guy originally, became a kickboxing promoter, and then when MMA came around, just filled in the blanks. So your guy, Marcel Fortuna, your former teacher, was hot on the MMA scene up there. And in fact, when he fought Jesse, he was 3-0. And he was fighting at Ralph Gracie. Now, Ralph Gracie was a much more rugged Brazilian school. Ralph and Caesar were cousins. Caesar was much more adaptable to American style. Caesar had been a highway patrol officer, from what I understand. Ralph was much more like a traditional Brazilian, rough, tough. And I heard at the school at one point, they'd say, like, if you want to fight MMA, you need your black belt first. Now, we all know that that's absurd, right? Like, there's blue belts who win UFC titles. Like, that doesn't matter. But I understand where they were coming from and their thought process with it. I'm glad I didn't go there. I mean, Alf was a serious dude. Anyway, Jesse did what was classic at the time in MMA. He laid and prayed Marcel Fortuna. So Marcel lost that fight. It was his first loss. He was 3-1 after his fight with Jesse. And it shows the dominance wrestlers had in MMA at that time. It would have been 2011, 2012, something like that. But Jesse was a good guy, man. This is me and him but down in Team Quest Oceanside when I moved back down to San Diego. And I remember that day I took a private with Jesse. And I said, yeah, bring me to Dan Anderson's. And after that day, Jesse goes, well, we'll just do a few more privates to get you back in shape. I hadn't been training, right? Like, my life had gone off the rails and whatnot. But yes, I do know your ex-teacher, Marcel Fortuna, was a very tough jiu-jitsu guy. And it segued into my story with my boy, Jesse Taylor. There's a lot more about Jesse. Like, he was the guy who got thrown off the UFC show for kicking out a limo window, and at a time when Dana White was trying to make the UFC look like it was, boxing and these guys could be traditional, Jesse acted like a high school kid. So bad on Jesse. So Jesse turned into the road warrior. He went around the world fighting in different promotions, beating up different guys until they finally had a redemption series for the Tough Show, and Jesse won it, right? I was in prison when Jesse won that, right? Way after this, I took this picture with him, and I was so happy for him. I'm like, oh, this is great. But then you lose track because you're in prison, you can't look things up. And I get out, and I talked to Terry Sokaju, I remember, when I got out, and I said, well, what happened? He goes, I never fought in the UFC. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a drug test. That part of the story I didn't catch up on. I was sad that happened to Jesse because he earned his way back in with all those fights he had. Anyway, yeah, listener, thanks for the segue. Awesome. Everybody read my book, Warrior of the Light.